Assalamu alaikum, everyone. We welcome you in this session. It's a very interesting session that uh, what should be the role of youth in public policy. Pakistan has the largest young population in the world. And according to the last census, 64% of total population is below the age of 30 and 29% is between the age of 15 to between the age of 15 and 29 years. Almost 4 million youth enters the working age population every year in Pakistan. Having the engine of growth, the youth population has a power to transform country's future. But unfortunately, this young potential couldn't unleash to put country on the fast track of development, mainly because despite its largest share in the population, the youth seems to be absent from the sphere of public policy. Something that we must have to learn from the advanced countries, that effective policies are instrumental to transform young population into human capital, where the youth being a stakeholder has an inclusive role to design and execute these policies. In developing countries like Pakistan, this aspect of policy seems to be missing in the past as well as in the present. This session aims to discuss this key point, that how effectively the youth can play its role in public policy. And for that, we have a very esteemed panel. We have a panel of very esteemed and young guests. So first of all, I'll introduce our guests and then we'll discuss about the issue. We have with us Dr. Mohammad Salim. Dr. Salim is currently working as a Chief Executive Officer, Pakistan Credit Guarantee Company, which is a risk-sharing facility for small and medium enterprises. He's also trained regulator and worked in various departments at Pakistan Central Bank. Previously, he worked as a Chief Operating Officer of Pakistan Mortgage Refinery Company. He was also visiting professor at IOBM. He has worked as a Director Development Finance Support Department and Quality Assurance Department, State Bank of Pakistan. Previously, his posting included as a Chief Manager and Senior Joint Director, Infrastructure and Housing Finance Department with State Bank of Pakistan. He has extensive experience of public and private sector development, capital market development, credit enhancement mechanism, risk sharing, and creating regulatory framework for private sector development and bank regulation. Dr. Salim has expertise measuring power and banking sector performance, power sector regulation, and infrastructure related field. Furthermore, Dr. Salim, his book on privatization and regulation of electricity sector has been published in Germany and can be seen at Amazon.com. Dr. Salim holds his Master in Economics, MPhil in Economics, and Doctor of Philosophy from Australian National University. He has also did certificates from Wharton Business School, University of Pennsylvania. He also completed a certificate on public and regulation at Boulder Institute International Training Center, ILO. He's author of several research publications. So we welcome you, Dr. Salim. We have our second panelist, Dr. Muhammad Amir Ansari. Dr. Ansari is a recipient of prestigious Fulbright scholarship for Masters in Economics from Vanderbilt University, USA, and PhD in Economics and Public Policy from the New School University, New York. He has in USA. Dr. Ansari brings in a vast practical experience of public sector and public finance, social service delivery system, and public sector reforms with focus on fiscal policy reforms. His primary and secondary research areas are economics of public sector and public finance, respectively. Dr. Ansari is working as a program coordinator, People Poverty Reduction Program, Government of Sindh. Dr. Ansari has taught master level at on economics and financial management at New School University, New York, Vanderbilt University, Nashville, and ICRA University Institute of Business Management, Karachi. He is currently a member of working group on fiscal, monetary, and capital market development for 12th five-year plan 2018 to 2023 of Government of Pakistan. He is also a member of Association of Public Policy Analyst and Management. Thank you, Dr. Ansari, for joining us here.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So now I'm going to introduce our third panelist. You must know Mr. Taha Salim. Mr. Taha is an alumni of Institute of Business Management. He did his BBA and MBA from IOBM in 2009 and 2011 respectively. Taha has proved himself a multiple field, either it's in finance or administrative service. He's a Chevening scholar and got his master's in development and environment for the University of Sussex, which is the #1 institute in this area. He did his CSS in 2012 and got second position in Sindh province. He was the youngest among the batch mates, and now he is shining like a bright star in the Department of Karachi Metropolitan Service as a DG Parks and Horticulture. He took many initiatives there. Previously, he had been located as a Deputy Commissioner Zob, and his achievements are appreciable. Renovation of Zob, Castle Zob, and handing over 200 years old temple to the Hindu community are his recognizable achievements. He had made IOBM proud everywhere he worked. He a real example of hard work and commitment, indeed. Thank you, Taha, for joining us.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Zubair sir. Thank you.
Okay. And we have another young panelist, Mr. Zulkarnain. Mr. Zulkarnain is currently associated with the Habib University as a lecturer of social development and policy. He previously worked with World Bank and School Education Department to implement Sindh Global Partnership for Education. He holds his master's in public administration and public policy as a Chevening Scholars, bachelor's in business administration from IOBM, and certificates of leadership, communication, and policy developments from the University of Cambridge. In 2019, Zulkarnain was selected for American Middle Eastern Network for Dialogue and Stanford, USA for conceiving the idea of Youth Center for Research and inspiring youth-led think tank. Thank you, Zulkarnain, for joining us.
Ji, bahut shukriya. Thank you for having me.
Now, after this brief introduction, I'll start our discussion. And as I mentioned that Pakistan actually couldn't able to transform its largest segment of the population into human capital, as I mentioned. So first of all, I'll start from Dr. Salim. Dr. Salim, can you hear me?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. So, Dr. Salim, you have a vast experience in your field. You have, you had a very, senior position at State Bank, and currently you are also leading a very important organization. What do you think that why Pakistan is way behind the countries which have invested in youth and transformed its youth in human capital?
I think it's a very relevant question, especially keeping in view our current economic and social situation. Both angle which requires a very market-oriented and well-defined public policy. You know, the purpose of the public policy is to increase the welfare of the people of the country. And that's why we elect our respective government at provincial level, district level, and the central level. So we elect them to increase the welfare level of its people. That's the main objective, honestly speaking. And there are different tools we use to increase the welfare level, and through regulation, through different measures. But keeping in view the current social level and economic level our nation is facing, so we can safely say that we have a failure of public policy in this country, which need to be corrected. And you rightly mentioned that there is not an issue of potential. We do have a potential. Our youth is very vibrant. We have a very big chunk of youth population in Pakistan, which is growing. And especially in this era of digitalization and availability of digital resources, so we can do miracles in this area, no doubt about that. But the question is how we can do that. I think one of the reasons is that there is a lack of awareness. In a simple word, I can say that. Let me define that. How we can define this lack of awareness. Lack of awareness at our youth level. They don't know how they can play their role in social and economic areas as well. This is our lack of awareness at youth level. Second thing, I will also somehow indirectly or directly blame our educational institutions as well. They are not training our youth for our market needs, our country needs. Because I've been work in several capacity in several areas. I have interaction with the youth to hire them, to engage them. Honestly speaking, when we have interaction, we want to engage youth people, they are not aware of market need. If we ask, for example, recently I need to hire a few economists. So I asked them, what is circular debt? This is a big issue in this country. You will agree with me, but they don't know about that. They can't even explain what is a circular debt, how they will provide any solution or the measure to address this issue. Secondly, even they don't know the function of the central bank. Even they have a degree in MPhil in economics or public policy or in business administration. They don't know what is the function of central government. If I ask them what are the major 5 key social or economic issues we are having, so they can't explain them. So this is also responsibility of our training institution and universities to make our youth useful so that when they enter into the job market, they should be able to perform that. It means we are sending our youth untrained to meet our demand. And the result is that our economy is creating a gap. Okay, there is a policy making gap as well. The third thing is that the people sitting in different positions, sometimes they are also not well aware what are the public issues are and how we can use our youth for the betterment of our society and how we can address these issues to remove our economic and social problems as well. So this is basically one key issue, I will say, awareness level at a different segment of the society. If they work together in a very planned manner, so we can use our youth, we can address our social and economic problems as well. So this is the one aspect. The second thing is that definitely the management of resources. So we need to have a planning, a long-term planning, how we can address our issues. For example, we used to have a very good 5 years plan, but maybe we have a plan now, but they are not fully implemented there. Okay, so there is a long-term planning and strategy we required at each and every level so that we can address our public policy issues as well. So I just stop here so that other panelists can also contribute to that. But primarily, my point is that we need to work in a very coordinated manner so that we address our issues. We have to engage our training institute, we need to engage our youth, and we also involve our policy makers so that we work together to resolve these issues. Otherwise, our economic and social issues will continue to rise, and maybe in the near future, it can become unsustainable. So we are moving towards that direction if you see the real picture.
Okay, now I'll take the view Dr. Ansari. Dr. Ansari, since you are engaged with academia as well as the policy making, so Dr. Salim here made a point that our educational institutions are actually not been able to produce the quality of the students. The students have the qualities that who can understand the issues, the basic issue, that they don't know what are the major economic issues right now. What should be the direction of the economic policy, etc. So what's your take on the issue?
Thank you very much. Actually, as Dr. Salim mentioned, that the things are not just like in silos. They are interconnected. Definitely, like we can always talk about the quality of education, and and the output they are giving to the society in chief. But again, like if you look at the education system, you have like a range of different educational sort of schools, colleges, universities, and definitely they have different output. I think that the real challenge for the policymakers is to kind of try to create a link whereby like the output, the kind of output, that specific output from those institutions, they are like connected with the market. So as like, and it's a kind of calibrating, like, and it's like, I think the role of public policy is to connect those institutions with the market, with the industry. So definitely like these institutions, education institutions, they create different kind of human resource, and different market institutions, they need different. So that actually just like matching the right resource with the right industry. Definitely, most of the human resource would be connected with the downstream industry maybe, and some maybe like with the high stream industry. So that's, I think, here is the role of public policy, where they connect the resource with the industry. And I think as from your introduction, I can assume like we are more like talking about the role of youth in public policy, focus more on economic growth or economic performance. So, but again, like before we talk about connecting the youth like with the market, so here is like the role of public policy. And public policy, like I believe, by the time we don't engage with the youth themselves, like it's very difficult to design any meaningful public policy. For example, like as a student of public policy, I believe like it's not an automatic thing, like you just like to incorporate everything like which is valuable for the youth into public policy. For that purpose, you have to like public policy leaders, analysts, and the most like importantly, like the political people, they have to engage with it, because once it's not on a political agenda, nothing is going to happen, because as everything comes from the political agenda, like all the public policies, they have reflection of the political agenda. So by the time like it is not there, it's very difficult to incorporate the real value, essence of what actually people, youth need, their aspirations, their needs, their preferences. If you like some time back, if you there was some experiments, I don't see those experiments these days, like youth parliaments, and they used to have like recommendations in different areas for the government. So that these sort of like sort of exercises whereby like the youth by uniting them under certain like organizations or certain agenda, they are actually putting forth their what they actually want, because just because the way we define the youth like below 30, we can't like think they would be in any position where they can influence the public policy process. So definitely by like organizing themselves under certain like organizations, they can like sort of put work as a pressure group or put forward their agenda, or whereby actually those things, the good things, they can be like shifted to the public policy. So this is my view on this specific point, because things not like automatic, they can't, because we don't see whatever like public the elements of the public policy, maybe it's education, health, or anything else, or the microcredit or any other thing. These are like some like most of the time like we don't have any idea actually whatever we are going to design or to formulate. Either they have like any input from the youth,
Okay.
the body. So I think yes, I stop here and let's have.
Okay, good. Okay. Now we'll take the view Mr. Taha Salim. Taha, from last couple of years, you have been working at a very local level as a deputy commissioner in Zob and deputy commissioner Las Pela, as I remember. So you had an interaction with the youth of a very remote areas like the youth of Balochistan, etc. So you must have seen the potential. So how would you think that why they have the problems that they couldn't actually transform these potential into human capital that could drive the development in these areas?
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me here, and I feel privileged to be part of such an esteemed panel. And a very pertinent question, because often when we talk about public policy, we have urban setups in mind, but we almost forget that half of the population of Pakistan lives in rural areas. And unfortunately, Pakistan is one of the very few countries where we have actually gone back in terms of our literacy rate. So, जहाँ दुनिया के अंदर literacy rate बढ़ रहा है, we are not unable to catch it with the increase in our population. So population तेजी से बढ़ रही है, and literacy rate वहीं पे stagnant है. And the major increase in population is in the rural areas. Or since we have talked about Balochistan, so we need to understand that the dynamics of Balochistan is very different from what we have in all of Pakistan. See, the area is so vast that you need a lot of resources to provide the same level of quality in terms of education which you are getting it in other parts of the country. For example, the population density of Zob was very low. So if you have a primary school in an area, you struggle to find a primary teacher. You then struggle to find enough transportation so that the students living nearby can come to the schools and study. So the conventional educational system might not work as such, or you need to invest a lot in their education. Unfortunately, what's happening there is that the basics. The panelist also, Dr. Salim also talked about how uh, even the master's student don't know basic things, and so believe me, the quality of education is so substandard that until unless we enhance our educational standards, the youth cannot be channelized into something productive or something competitive when they are compared with the urban areas of Pakistan. What to talk about the international community and what to talk about the other countries. So, being specific to Balochistan, I would rather say that we need to have horses for courses, and the policy making has to be in a way that it caters for the uniqueness of the areas of Pakistan. Uh, the geographical distances in Balochistan create a lot of hurdles for quality education. The overall level of education, the quality of teachers, that has to be corrected. And I can see that a lot of work is being done even in Balochistan because see, before 2014, or let's say till 2014 and 15, the security situation was such that you could hardly do anything to improve the education. The all concentration, every effort, everything was concentrated uh, on peace and law and order. But now, for the past 3 4 years, we can see there is a shift, and now people are talking about tourism, development, education. There is CPEC coming up, so a lot of activity is being done. I can only hope that through our public policy matters, we could realize the fact and the need that the development whichever can come to Balochistan has to come to the indigenous population first, and then all of Pakistan can have benefit out of it. But until and unless you put the locals and the indigenous population of those areas at the forefront, the youth cannot trust the state infrastructure, and the youth cannot trust the development being done there. And until and unless they don't trust it, they will not become a part of it, and they will not be brought into a streamline or into the mainstream development programs or the mainstream development infrastructure. Thus, if you need to ask me to sum it up into points, I would say the education, we have to invest a lot in education, number one. Number two, there's some trust deficit. We need to ensure that the youth of Balochistan is sure that whatever development is being done there is for their benefit, and no one would come from outside and use up their rights or use up their facilities or use up their area or land. And then we need to devise the policy which gives maximum chance to the locals of that area, so that they are again confident in the government policies, and they again become part of the solution, not the part of the problem. So I think yes. Zubair Sahab, you are mute.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, so you have explained well the difference that we have right now, the difference between the students, those who are the young students, those who are coming from rural backgrounds, and the students who are coming, who are actually from urban areas. So no doubt they have a lot of difficulties. Now, I'll take the point of Mr. Zulkarnain. Zulkarnain, you are also leading a think tank, it's a youth research and development. So, what's your experience? If we say that you have closely worked with the youth, and how would you say about the issue?
जी बहुत शुक्रिया Zubair Sab, and I think it's a very interesting topic, something that I am particularly very interested in. Before I could answer your question, I think there are a couple of fundamental things which I would like to kind of elaborate upon, or maybe seek some clarity upon. So the title for the talk talks about the role of the youth in public policy. So the notion of public policy itself is extremely broad. So we need to have a very collective and common understanding as to what do we really mean by when we say public policy. So public policy can include legislation, public policy can include the programs announced by the government, even the political manifestos that are made by the political parties and who then eventually become the government are also included as part of the public policy. So the promises made by the government to do something or even not to do something are included in public policy per se. So the thing is, the reason why I am mentioning this is because it actually highlights a lot of facets of public policy, from the political perspective, from the administrative perspective, and from the policy making perspective. So therefore we need to have some clarity as to where exactly are we keeping our eyes on. Secondly, I think it has already been highlighted. ताहा साहब जो है इन्होंने काफ़ी अच्छे से elaborate किया है इस चीज़ को कि dynamics जो हैं वो are important. I would build on that as well कि जब हम youth की बात करते हैं तो एक छोटा सा अलमिया I think है कि हम ये assume करते हैं कि it's one homogeneous group. Well, it is not. Because we need to understand this कि हमें इसे मज़ीद deconstruct करने की ज़रूरत है. We need to look at it from the sex perspective, the gender perspective. We need to look at it from the socio-economic and political perspective. और अगर मैं सिंध की बात करूं मिसाल के तौर पे तो आपका तो मेजॉरिटी यूथ जो है वो रूरल एरिया से आता है. तो अगेन सो द डायनामिक्स वुड मैटर. So just to build on Taha Saab's point. Thirdly, आप रोल की जब हम बात करते हैं तो आम फहम अल्फाज के अंदर तो हम जब बात करते हैं तो हम कहते हैं कि रोल यानी इस पर्टिकुलर या फलां चीज़ के अंदर गवर्नमेंट का क्या रोल है, यानी क्या किरदार है, तो हमारा हिंट होता है जिम्मेदारी के ऊपर. तो अब यहाँ पर थोड़ी सी क्लैरिटी की ज़रूरत है मेरे ख्याल में कि व्हाट डू वी एग्जैक्टली मीन बाय द रोल हियर. आर वी लुकिंग एट इट फ्रॉम द राइट्स परस्पेक्टिव और आर वी लुकिंग एट इट फ्रॉम द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी परस्पेक्टिव? बिकॉज अगर हम रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी परस्पेक्टिव से बात करते हैं तो आई थिंक इट्स अ वेरी it would be very unfair for the youth per se, because responsibility has two facets here, particularly in this regard. इसमें दो facets ये हैं कि willingness and ability of the youth to participate, and second facet would be the enabling environment to make them participate. So both these things I think very much will help us in understand a lot of issues that the youth has been facing. Now coming to the question per se, कि मेरा experience क्या रहा है, you're very right. I've been running this initiative which is an aspiring youth-led think tank. तो जिस तरह से डॉक्टर सलीम साहब ने बात की, and I would agree, education has been repeatedly highlighted as one of the major issues that we are facing, and having worked in the education, I've closely seen some of the challenges there as well. तो ये जो डॉक्टर साहब ने बात की थी कि knowledge और awareness नहीं है. So the basic idea behind Youth Center for Research was this, कि मेरा अपना ज़ाती ख्याल भी यही है कि हम रेटरिक्स के ऊपर ज़्यादा बिलीव करते हैं. हम ये कहते हैं कि मसाइल हैं, issues चल रहे हैं, but we don't really go deep down as to trying to understand as to what really are the issues. And more so, I think the youth also does not understand the institutions that exist. So therefore, the entire premise of Youth Center for Research was to undertake this research-driven discourses among the youth and also connect them with the experts, ताकि वो exchange of knowledge and exchange of information हो सके. So just to kind of conclude here, मेरा ज़ाती तजर्बा जो है young लोगों के साथ काम करने का, of course educational challenges हैं यहाँ पे, लेकिन I would definitely agree with Dr. साहब और सलीम साहब के the knowledge and the information and the awareness is something which is kind of lacking. And I think the youth, of course the dynamics vary, but those who are still can participate, and of course we have to explain the notion of participation as well. Those who can participate need to understand this, they need to understand the issues from like holistically before they can even attempt to voice their concerns. So that's where I would conclude, and I would let the conversation proceed forward, and I will add points wherever I think there's a need.
Okay, with this, I'll finish the first round of our discussion. Now I'll go to the second round of the discussions, that is Actually, our universities are producing the graduates, as we mentioned. Dr. Salim has mentioned, and then Zulkarnain has also mentioned that actually universities are not in somehow not capable, or in somehow not producing the graduates of the quality which can compete with the current needs of the market. So here, if I would say that some of our universities are producing the graduates from different domains like economics, international relations, law, and other disciplines of social sciences. We are also offering here a program that is BS Economics, Law, and International program. So my questions to the panelists would be that do we have such market space for the students, and do we have such scopes that either universities are producing these programs, but are the markets are enough to absorb them? So I'll take the view of panelists. So Dr. Salim,
yes, please.
what do you think that the students of economics, as you mentioned, that most of the students don't know the basic things even about the circular debts you have mentioned and many other things which are basic for policy making, but they don't know. So even universities are offering these programs. Do you think ये हमारे जो इस वक्त जो market situation है, particularly if we talk about policy domain, so this policy domain can absorb the students, those who are coming with this relevant background?
Let me be straightforward. If you just make a list of courses offered by the universities, so it will go in hundreds. ठीक है? तकरीबन मेरा ख्याल है 100 से ज़्यादा जिन्हें courses offer होते हैं. If you just go in the law, in economics, in finance, in IT, in psychology, so there are courses. There are courses, hundreds of courses. But again, the point is that do they meet the requirement and demand of the industry? The answer is very simple, no. आप लॉ ग्रेजुएट से पूछें, सवाल करें, तो वो जो मैं एज ए लॉ फर्म या मैं एज ए क्लाइंट एक्सपेक्ट करता हूँ लॉयर से, so he cannot satisfy my needs. If you hire an economist, you need his analytical skills, his economic skills. He has a degree, he has a very high GPA, no doubt about that. He has studied in a very good university. But if I ask him, okay, just write a short brief on a debt policy of Pakistan, so we can't do that. So I'm saying, let me tell me how I can increase my revenue, for example. As a fiscal policy, I need to design my fiscal policy to increase revenue for this country because they only 3 million people pay taxes, right? Or we have a huge population, we have a huge youth. How we can increase tax base? So he can't come up with the 2 or 3 paragraphs so that concrete ideas कि वो क्या कर सकते हैं, ठीक है? तो courses की list exist करती है, लेकिन क्वेश्चन अगेन वही है, क्या ये कोर्सेज जो है हमारी जो डिमांड है वो चाहे प्राइवेट सेक्टर की तरफ से आए या गवर्नमेंट सेक्टर इंस्टीट्यूशन या डिपार्टमेंट की तरफ से आए, उसको मीट करते हैं, वो नहीं करते. तो व्हाट वी शुड डू नाउ, ठीक है? डेफिनेटली अब जो यूनिवर्सिटीज में कल्चर डेवलप हो रहा है, दैट इज ए मल्टी डिसिप्लिनरी इंटरडिसिप्लिनरी concept आ रहा है कि you have an economics degree but you should have also studied the law and other public policy and other IT courses as well. This is very good, okay, but this is a requirement. But practically we need to train our future students or future graduates so that they should contribute practically. They know how to write down. Now let me tell you what are the issues there. सबसे बड़ा issue ये है, they don't have a corporate writing skills. Even they have a very good economics knowledge, but they can't convert this economics knowledge into a corporate communication, into a corporate writing format. ठीक है? अब हमें जब हम hire करते हैं students को, we have to train them how to write it. For example, मुझे किसी एमफिल ग्रेजुएट स्टूडेंट्स ने रिपोर्ट दी और उसमें उसने न्यूज़पेपर से कॉपी करके पेस्ट करके दे दिया, जिसमें बाकायदा पर्सन्स ने क्या कहा, उनके नाम लिखे हुए थे कि जी मिस्टर सो सो ने ये कहा, मिस्टर सो सो ने ये कहा, दैट वाज अ रिपोर्ट बाय हिम। हमने उनसे ये थोड़ी कहा था कि जी स्टेटमेंट्स क्या है ये न्यूज़पेपर में, जस्ट ही कॉपी द न्यूज़पेपर न्यूज आइटम एंड पेस्टेड इन द रिपोर्ट। ठीक है, सो यू आर यूनिवर्सिटीज आर गिविंग नॉलेज, आवर स्टूडेंट प्रोफेसर्स लेक्चरर्स दे आर वर्किंग हार्ड, आई हैव नो डाउट दे आर वर्किंग हार्ड, बट इशू इज क्या उस यूनिवर्सिटी प्रोफेसर्स को प्रैक्टिकल इंडस्ट्री में एक्सपीरियंस है काम करने का? आंसर इज नो। तो हाउ ही कैन पास ऑन दिस इंफॉर्मेशन टू स्टूडेंट्स कि जी प्रैक्टिकल इंडस्ट्री में क्या रिक्वायरमेंट है, हाउ टू राइट अ रिपोर्ट, हाउ टू कलेक्ट डाटा एंड एनालाइज द डाटा। ठीक है, आपने प्रेजेंटेशंस बनाई, क्लासरूम में गए, पावर पॉइंट प्रेजेंटेशन दी और उसके बाद वापस आ गए। सो वी नीड टू डेवलप ए केस स्टडी मॉडल फॉर आवर स्टूडेंट्स। ओके, केस स्टडीज हों, आप अपने कोर्सेज में इंडस्ट्री से स्पेशलिस्ट जरूर बुलाएं ताकि वो आके बताएं कि जी एक थ्योरेटिकल साइड है जो एक रेगुलर टीचर दे रहा है, इट्स वेरी गुड। एक इंडस्ट्री से आए वो अपना पर्सपेक्टिव दे कि व्हाट आर द करंट इश्यूज गोइंग ऑन इन माय इंडस्ट्री, फॉर एग्जांपल कोई भी है उसमें क्या इश्यूज चल रहे हैं, हाउ वी आर एड्रेसिंग इट, एंड देन उनको प्रैक्टिकल असाइनमेंट्स दी जाए, सेंड देम स्टूडेंट टू द इंडस्ट्री कि जाएं, आप जाएं इंडस्ट्री में जाके थोड़ा सा अटैचमेंट प्रोग्राम्स हों, केस स्टडीज हों। और आई पर्सनली बिलीव कि अगर हमने अपने इकोनॉमिक इश्यूज को रिजॉल्व करना है तो वी नीड टू फोकस ऑन टेक्निकल एजुकेशन। हर रीजन में एक स्ट्रेंथ है, बलोचिस्तान की अपनी स्ट्रेंथ है, जैसे सर ने कहा वी नीड टू आइडेंटिफाई पोटेंशियल इन डिफरेंट डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल्स, प्रोविंशियल लेवल्स, और उनको उसी लेवल की ट्रेनिंग उसी में वहीं पे ट्रेनिंग दे के उनसे काम लिया जाए। और फोकस शुड बी ऑन टेक्निकल ट्रेनिंग, जिससे हम अपनी लोकल डिमांड भी मीट कर सकें और इंटरनेशनल डिमांड भी मीट कर सके। सिंपली डिग्री देने से काम नहीं चलेगा। तो माय आंसर इज कोर्सेज यूजफुल होते हैं, कोर्सेज लिस्ट आउट भी हैं, बट वी नीड टू डिजाइन कोर्सेज इन सच ए वे कि उसमें एक प्रैक्टिकल एस्पेक्ट भी हो, इंडस्ट्री की डिमांड भी मीट कर रही हो, और उनको हम जॉब मार्केट के लिए तैयार करें, ना कि डिग्री के लिए तैयार करें। अभी हम जो तैयार कर रहे हैं स्टूडेंट्स को, वो डिग्री के लिए तैयार करते हैं। ओके, यू जस्ट डू these courses, you have a minimum this GPA, you will be able to get the degree, but whether he will be able to contribute in the industry वो नहीं होता। तो सॉरी, इससे सब फोकस होना चाहिए कि हाउ वी ट्रेन these through these courses to enter into the market and meet the challenges of the industry। और जब हम इंडस्ट्री की डिमांड को मीट कर लेंगे तो collectively we can resolve our public policy issues as well। Over to Zubair।
Okay. Okay, good. Dr. Salim had made, I think, few points, and one point is very important, that we shouldn't produce the students. We shouldn't, offer the programs just for the sake of degree. We should offer the program which are market oriented, industry oriented, and the students after getting the degree should be able to produce something, rather than just saying graduates without having a knowledge or anything like that. So and one another point that you have discussed, that now we should focus on multidisciplinary approach rather than offering the courses in a particular discipline, like a particular field like media, economics, or any other. So we should integrate different domains of social sciences and other subjects to produce the students having the knowledge of everything, rather than just a particular field. So, Dr. Ansari, what's your take on this point?
Actually, it depends. Like, for example, if we adopt this multidisciplinary approach, like it depends, like what are the goals of a particular student. Let's suppose the MBA is sort of like multidisciplinary approach where you study in like the 4 semesters, economics, accounting, the organization behavior, marketing, and everything. You know a lot. You know like about the a lot many things, but maybe like your concentration may not be like as if you take like economics as a like a distinct subject or social studies or the political science. Like it depends. So in my opinion, like a student should have like preferences. Like there should be a choice. Not necessarily all the subjects should be like multidisciplinary. If like I like if a particular student want to like excel exclusively like in a particular subject, it should be like on the list of. So I need like on the individual preference, and maybe not all the students like after graduating they want to be a part of the labor market. Like it's like not everybody like go for like good internships or the like attachments and everything, because like all this like post graduation like the phases of refining yourself, your skills actually indicate that you have some other objects. You want to be a part of the market. So definitely even if like you go for internship without any of like getting paid, because you have to have a name of the tag name of some good firm, so that you have better prospects for getting employed. So it's a good thing. Like again, like not necessarily everything should be multidisciplinary, because again, if you go for like multidisciplinary, it's like your attention, your time is divided like into things, or 4 things, or 5 things. But it's equally like good if you excel in one area and like leave the other. So I think that's just like a matter of choice, and like both kind of courses should be on the list of a particular university. So this is my like point of view. Because again,
Okay.
like our discussion is like it's just more focused on like being like in the labor market. So labor market, like again, select itself like the kind of human resource and the need they employ. If there is a need of like something which somebody which who should know like a bit about everything, like for example, the combination of economics and law, or economics or political science, or economics or the statistics is good, but like the other choices could be open as well.
Okay, good. Dr. Ansari, you also have made points that the you know the program in different disciplines should be market oriented, and rather than the same thing that I think Dr. Salim has also suggested. Taha, you usually students take the paths like after doing MBA, BBA, and MBA, they go for job in industry. But you have chosen a different path. You have chosen civil services, and then you have done masters in public policy, etc. So you have a diverse background. If I talk about yourself, so considering your experience, what you suggest about this multidisciplinary programs that we are offering in economics, law, and international relations, and other multidisciplinary programs that universities are offering?
First of all, I must congratulate IOBM on launching a program which is specific to international relations, economics, and law. So the students that are coming here would directly be eligible for anything which has to do with public policy, which has to do with government sector, with which has to do with even in the corporate sector. I'll tell you that. Okay, I think that IR is one degree which opens up, broaden of your horizon and your view in a way which no other degree can do. Like even if I have done MBA in finance, I was specific to finance only, and in a certain limitations, in a certain way that I could deal with it. But doing IR, which is a very important subject in CSS or even in any other provincial services exam if you take up. IR really broadens up your horizon and your view and your vision about how you see the world and how you can contribute to it. So when we say about policy making and when we talk about the combination of IR, law, and economics, you are directly hitting those areas which usually we don't really cater to. For example, even if you leave CSS apart, like CSS mein to you are directly getting people ready for CSS. But even if not CSS, you have PCS, you have State Bank, you have various other government opportunities which can come on your way, because see, the biggest employer of Pakistan is the government of Pakistan itself. So there are ample opportunities and you are getting them ready for it. Secondly, what I have experienced in my service of around more than 8 years is that even the corporate sector needs a lot of human resource who can engage with the government offices, who can engage at policy level, who can engage at law level. तो उनको भी बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरत पड़ती है, and often I found them कि they are either searching for कोई lawyer मिल जाए उनको, कोई इस तरह का बंदा मिल जाए, retired कोई मिल जाए, तो they are also looking for individuals who can interact with the government, who can give their input in policy making. So it's not that कि सिर्फ आप government के अंदर ही लोग eligible होंगे, even in the corporate sector I believe कि there is a vast requirement of individuals or the human resource who know about policy making, who can defend their industry, who can defend their company when it comes to interaction with the government, when it comes to giving policy input, when it comes to giving recommendation about the budget, about the taxes. So there is the relevance is there, and you need to, and there is a need, because you see that the the traditional MBA in marketing, MBA finance, the market is getting saturated quite quickly. So you need to have come up with various other diverse fields so that you can explore such employment opportunities which are not there or which are not explored in a way that they should have been explored. And coming to your part, that what why I chosen this, and then I went to be allocated in Pakistan Administrative Service. Believe me that uh, a lot of things when we do the examination, we did not know about policy making. It was after we got trained in Lahore, and then after with the experience in our field, we started getting to know that what policy, public policy making is, and how to work at the government level, how to interact with people, how to interact with officers, how to interact with public. But frankly speaking, usually what we study in the universities does not directly relate to our job opportunities in government or after CSS. So I think if someone with this background or this degree would have a competitive advantage, because he would already know how to function in a public policy setup, how to function in a setup which involves a lot of laws, a lot of acts, a lot of legal dimensions, and he would know how the world is functioning, what's happening with Pakistan and with other countries, what are the relationships all along. So he will be at a very higher stage of knowledge in terms of this in this arena. So I think it's a very good program and it should be promoted because we need individuals who are ready and who understand public policy and public policy matters. And I think I have not seen the detail of the courses. I'm sure that the think tank you have must have or must have had a blend of being practicality of things and the academics of things. So I'm really excited about this program coming into the market.
Okay, I think Taha has made a point that only few people know that government of Pakistan is the biggest employer anyway. But there's a perception that the universities, like specifically if we talk about the business schools, they are just producing corporate recruiters. But I think this is a new addition that now the universities are going toward these disciplines, like they're producing the graduates which are now contributing in public sectors, and they are going for civil services. We have an example like Taha Salim is our graduate. And we have many other examples as well. So Zulkarnain, now you are teaching university, and you also engaged with in past you have worked with some organizations. You have worked with the policy policy making, and you have done your masters in public policy, etc. How would you see this multidisciplinary approach? Do you think is it workable in our context when we talk about the country like us?
Okay, so before I answer that question, so the azan is going on. So in case if there's any background disruption, I hope that's perfectly fine. So just okay, so just to
Okay.
proceed with the question itself. Well, interdisciplinary disciplinary approach, I think, is something which is the need of the day. For example, drawing from my academic experience, and of course जो हमारे यहाँ पे guest speakers हैं उनकी निस्बत मेरा तो तजर्बा बहुत कम है, लेकिन जो भी तजर्बा है उसकी उसकी नज़र में I would say कि one of the reasons why our public policies had been failing, it's because हम लोग उस public policy के process को बहुत mechanical तरीके से देखते हैं, और उसमें जो वो ह्यूमन बिहेवियरल चेंज का एस्पेक्ट है, विच इज़ व्हाट एवरी पॉलिसी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन बेसिकली डिमांड्स, दैट इज़ मिसिंग. If I just give you an example, अभी HEC के जो projects आते हैं, the way because they open up different projects, तो उसके अंदर they have put up this condition के there should be some social scientists as part of the team that is basically applying for different projects. So we can understand this the need of interdisciplinary approach is extremely important. So that is my quick and brief response to the question in comes to like when it comes to interdisciplinary approach. However, adding some points to the previous discussion that was going on in regards to the education courses and programs meeting the need of the market itself. Well, I would say I think कि इसमें हमें ये देखने की ज़रूरत है कि क्या हमारे तालीमी इदारे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से बात कर रहे हैं या नहीं कर रहे हैं. ठीक है, that linkage should be there. Then we have to, from meso level, we also have to go to the micro level as well. We have to see how the courses are being designed. We have to see what is the standard being chosen for those courses. And even we also have to see small things like teacher evaluation, because the thing is element of politics in education cannot really be eliminated, because and the teacher evaluation की बात मैं इसलिए भी कर रहा हूँ कि when we know that the evaluation of the teachers has, there is one evaluation being done by the teachers, so the students basically value the grade. So then there is one evaluation being done by the students for the teachers, so the teachers of course have sort of a, they have a stake in what the students at the end of the day have to say about them. So that thing, I mean अभी वज़ाहिर तौर पे शायद ये इतना मामूली sound कर रहा होगा, लेकिन it does have an implication over the product that you produce at the end of the day. Then moving to the individual level, I think कि ये जो relevance है, even if you have put in place interdisciplinary programs अगर हैं और ये basic बुनियादी चीज़ें अगर तब्दील नहीं होती, individual level पे students इस चीज़ की responsibility और seriousness को नहीं समझते कि at the end of the day यूनिवर्सिटी में 4 साल हैं, उसके बाद आपको बाहर जाना है, तो ये जो अपॉर्चुनिटी उनको मिली है, they also have to make the best use of it in order to build and hone their skills. So वो individual जिम्मेदारी भी आप नहीं खत्म कर सकते. तो there is a whole lot of a hierarchy of responsibilities that needs to be considered in order to make sure that even if there are interdisciplinary programs in place which are extremely needed, the success of it will depend upon the implementation of them successfully on multiple levels. So that's my quick brief response to the question. I hope that.
Okay, so this is how we will have to start our third round of discussion. That I think during the first round of our questions, some one of the participants, I exactly forget who mentioned that there are constraints actually, constraint on demand side as well as constraint on supply side. So if we keep in mind this point, my questions would be that what should be the challenges for youth when we want to involve them in policy making, in policy formulation, in execution of policies. So what are the challenges for the youth as well as for the other stakeholders, for the government and for other authorities as well? Dr. Salim, I would start from yourself again.
I think this question needs some further elaboration. So what do you mean the constraints?
I think, constraints may be resource is actually one of the things that is maybe a problem. So we don't have the required resources to involve them. We don't have an institutional capacity actually. So there are a lot of things. So
yeah. Definitely, universities has a constraint in terms of resources. They need sometimes funding to design project, especially such projects which can help to understand students how to design policy and how to implement the policy. Okay, so especially right now when HSE has research and universities, so it will also trickle down or have a negative impact on the fiscal aspect of the universities. So this is the first major constraint they are going to have. Second is that we need to train our, as I previously said, we need to train our trainers as well, means lecturer, professors, and associate professors in the relevant field so that they can have a practical experience. I will suggest that every teacher, in what capacity they are teaching at a university, they should have a industry exposure as well. So they should develop a working relationship with the relevant industries as well. For example, if economics professor is teaching in university, so he should have very working relationship with the relevant line ministries, departments, so that they can have a mutual understanding and so that their capacity building should be increased. Okay, so we need to enhance capacity building of our teaching staff. That's a constraint right now. They don't have such opportunity, and the government should also extend this opportunity to university staff as well, to universities as well, so that they have a special training program, exposure program for teaching staff, so that they can train our youth in a proper way, in a better way as well. This is the constraint that our teaching staff having somehow capacity issue as well, which can be resolved by having an exposure and specialized training program for them as well. In terms of constraint to the youth, yes, they sometimes need to go to the relevant ministries and department for data collection. They don't have availability of data, honestly. They sometimes they complain they don't find the relevant data. When they don't have a relevant data, how they can do work on any project? What feedback or input they can provide if they don't have a right and a timely information as well. So this is one. The second thing is that government should also, or the relevant, and university can play a key role in this area as well. They should disseminate information to the students in terms of job requirement, in terms of job availability, okay, and in terms of availability of information to the students as well, so that they can know where they are heading, what type of jobs are coming in the market, what are the requirement of the job, I mean eligibility criteria or something like this, so that they can prepare themselves for this purpose as well. So again, students should also put some effort to get these information so that they can train for the market. And simultaneously, university should also make some arrangements so that they can facilitate the youth to get the job opportunities and to get trained for these opportunities as well. Fourth thing is that government should also encourage and support and facilitate some practical projects. Let me explain this. There are, I know because I've been involved with HSE, and we had a couple of meetings to support startups. So now our youth is very much involved in startup businesses. They are interested in young entrepreneurship activities. whether it's in a digital or in other areas. So, you know, the nature of the startup is that they need initial support for the 3 or 5 years. If university or government relevant departments, if they support these startups for the period of 3 to 5 years, so these startups can achieve its scalability. You know, they can become a mature business. So there are a lot of startups coming in Pakistan, but they don't have access to finance. Okay, they need funding. They need funding in the form of grant to buy some tools, equipments, feasibility study, business plan, and all these things. At this stage, they don't need loan. They need grants to get to these basic things. Sometimes they need loan to make startups a viable, commercially viable avenue or to make a scalable business. So they need financing. So this is a constraint to the youth that they don't have a right level of financing available so that they convert their ideas into reality. You know, so the government and the universities, they should also think that how they can resolve this issue or this constraint so that our youth can play a very active role, or they can contribute that they can convert their dreams into the reality, concept into the realities. So our youth is vibrant, as I said earlier. They can do miracles, but they need a guidance. They need a guidance from the university. They need a guidance from government relevant departments as well. This is the way we can resolve our issues as well. So these are the major constraints at each and every level, which we need to address specifically. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Ansari, since you are teaching public policy, so considering your experience with the, academia, your engagement with students and with the policy making as well, what's your response to this question?
Thank you. As I understood your question, like you were asking about the challenges faced by the first students and then by the governments when they are in the process of designing, implementing, formulating, or implementing a public policy.
Yeah.
So the first of all, students. So as I said earlier, like the first the problem or the challenge they face, like everybody, like the policy, the public policy forums, they design, they take them for granted. Like they don't take them like very serious. They say like, for example, they are like passive clients of a public policy. Maybe like if their needs are not satisfied, they are okay. And then they can do like other things. So normally they don't find any like visible space in public policy. This is my like, and the reason is, again, as I said earlier, like they don't have forums that actually a voice for them, for their concerns, their like aspirations. That's the main, I think, two major problems. And for the government, just because they don't have those like the voices from those forums to stand for the youth, different types of youth. So definitely like their concerns, their aspirations, their preferences, their choices don't get into the public policy, whatever public policy, like it's education or maybe related to health, sports, or whatever. And the second is like those policy making players, they think they know everything about the youth, what they need, what their preferences are. So they like include whatever like by themselves. So I think by the time the voice from the youth, it's not like, and they have to have a channel. So that channel is actually missing. So thereby, like even if the government is serious, the policymakers they are serious to incorporate, even if they don't consider they know everything. So they don't have like those forums where therefrom they can like seek some advice or recommendations. Let me tell you, in my initial days when I was with the government, I was a part of accounts and finance committee. Uh, Whenever there is like some issues in university, in public universities particularly, there is some like financial issues. So there is a government committee and the finance department. They have a representation on those committees. And in one of the public universities, there was an issue of raising the fee for the students. And that public accounts and finance committee was recommended higher fees for different different levels to the Senate of the university. And in making those decisions, there was no representation or the voice from the student body. So like that was the decision going to happen. And because at that time I considered myself in the age I could define myself as youth. So I actually, but by the time you don't have representation from the youth, you can't make any changes in fee structure unilaterally. So, so those forums, those sort of forums, that's the thing. They are necessary at in every field. Where the youth in different with different denominations, they can actually at least they can voice what they want. So I think these two the things I think are the major or the essential challenges I think underwent by the students as well as the government.
Okay, Taha, I know you have taken some initiatives, you are encouraging the students to take part in civil services exams, and you are also had some initiatives. So, how difficult it is to involve the students at this stage to get involved in policy making, and what's your experience? Well, I mean, the question is same that, but I want to share your experience.
As you suggested, as you just mentioned that we are running a CSS corner, which talks about preparing for CSS and free of cost to the students, and it's been going well. So I feel that the students and the youth and they are really willing to work, and they are really ready to grab any opportunity that comes to their way. So I feel that it's the system. It is we who needs to provide them ample opportunities to showcase their talent and to polish their skills, because we often talk about the students not being competitive enough. But believe me, if you give them enough opportunities, they do work, and they are willing to give their best. And I feel that is the same with every institute, with everyone who is involved in this public policy, or who wants to take up public policy as well. So I believe that the challenge is more on the supply side than the demand side. The demand is there. Students are willing to work. Students are willing to learn. It's how much opportunities we can provide to them. So that is the major issue which I feel it is there. And one offer that I need to make to you is that whoever Institute of Business Management or the students of this program in particular who are willing to do bachelor's in IR economics and law, I would offer them visits of various government departments. For example, if they are interested in, we can have field visits to KMC, to my office, how to make them see how the working is there. To various different offices, we can arrange their visits as well, like to SSU Sindh, to even to the Sindh government. So we can do that. So that's how we can balance their academia with the practicality of things, and they might get inspired, they might learn from it. So whatever help is required from the KMC part, KMC will be there to help them out. Thank you.
Okay, Zulkarnain, same questions that you himself, you know, you are actually the part of this when we talk about. Although we have all the participants who are the representative of this youth working age population, but you are, you are just entered in the market. So, what's your point on this issue? That what are the constraints?
Okay, although the youngest among the panelists, I would still just give a disclaimer that I am not representing the youth because it would not be, just to kind of represent 64% of the population. Anyway, so responding to the question in regards to the challenges, to the youth and to the government. Well, I would say that जब graduation होती है students निकलते हैं and when they enter the job market, right, the first, I mean, the employer's perspective normally is they do tend to look at some of the experience, some sort of experience of the students, I mean, by the students and by the candidates. So I think ये जो requirement है इसको तालीम के दौरान जो है वो मुख्तलिफ कोर्स वर्क के थ्रू ही पूरा किया जा सकता है बिकॉज दैट इज़ द टाइम पीरियड व्हेन यू हैव टू वर्क ऑन द स्किल सेट. नाउ आई एम नॉट अज्यूमिंग कि ये कोर्स वर्क अवेलेबल नहीं होता. देयर आर इंटर्नशिप अपॉर्चुनिटीज बट द थिंग इज जो इंटर्नशिप्स ऑफर की जाती हैं दे आर आई मीन आई थिंक देयर इज एन एलिमेंट ऑफ एडिंग वैल्यू टू देम. There is a proper need of monitoring or proper need of designing those internship opportunities, and I think those internship opportunities should be designed mutually with the between the organizations and the universities, so that the element of seriousness and monitoring can be implemented. Now by monitoring I mean it can be done on both institute. I mean, the university should know what the student is basically doing in the internship, and the employer should confirm as to what the student had been learning, because the thing is otherwise no matter how much of coursework we basically add, that is not really going to work. On the institution side I would say we also need to see कि जो youth का लफ्ज़ है इसके साथ element of non seriousness assume ना की जाए, because I think the youth group itself is also a very exploited group. आपने खुद कहा रहे हैं, we know the statistics, 64% आपका जो है वो ये आबादी का हिस्सा है, और फिर 30% जो है वो तकरीबन 15 to 29 की एज आती है. तो we
या
already know
दे आर अगले कुछ सालों में वो भी इसका पार्ट होंगे वर्किंग एज का, अगर हम बात करें.
exactly.
या
So you're very right. So the thing is कि this age group or this group of youth itself has been exploited previously, and the history shows that. ठीक है, and so we need to make sure that वो exploitation ना हो, चाहे exploitation politically या economically या socially या financially, that exploitation should not be done. एंड अगर हम यहाँ पर यूथ की बात कर रहे हैं तो आई थिंक कि ये रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी फिर बहुत ज़्यादा इंस्टीट्यूशंस पर आती है, चाहे वो कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर की हो चाहे वो पब्लिक सेक्टर की हो. नाउ कमिंग फ्रॉम द पब्लिक सेक्टर, आई थिंक इट्स वेरी थैंक यू Dasa for this offer, because I think I'll use that as sort of a opportunity to kind of connect with you later on. But I think that sort of responsiveness I think is not there from all the institutions, I would say, having briefly worked with the organizations. So again यहाँ पर दो चीज़ें हैं, एक responsiveness from the institution भी है और एक assumed perception भी है among the youth. वो सोचते हैं कि there is no point of interacting with the government institutions. ठीक है, तो मेरे ख्याल में उस चीज़ के ऊपर भी काम करने की ज़रूरत है. इट्स अ टू वे प्रोसेस, बिकॉज अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम्स वी डू टॉक, आई मीन सोशल साइंसेज के अंदर एजेंसी की बात बहुत की जाती है कि आपकी अपनी एक इंडिविजुअल की अथॉरिटी होती है दैट यू गो एंड एक्ट ऑन अ सर्टन थिंग. बट द थिंग इज कि वो कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ होती है व्हेन यू ऑलरेडी हैव अ प्री कंसीव्ड नोशन. तो हमारे यहाँ पर जो यंग लोग हैं वो ये सोचते हैं, चाहे वो बेजारी, और वो बेजारी आई थिंक अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम्स इज नॉट incorrect. Lekin again, they have to try it out and approach the institutions and test them again and again to see कि कितना responsiveness है. And then we also have to work from the other side, and that is from the government and corporate institutions, to seriously take this thing, because corporates cannot work if this group is not really added value to. अगर आज उनके भी अपने एम्प्लॉइज जो हैं वो रिटायर होंगे एंड they'll have to have the resource to replace that, तो अगर इस ग्रुप के ऊपर वो खुद काम नहीं करेंगे and they're not willing to let them have the opportunity and experience while they are gaining their academic experience, so tomorrow they're not going to have a quality workforce. It's also important for their own expansion, and the same applies to the government institutions. The working on the youth itself is extremely needed for the institutional capacity building and their expansion to begin with. Gee, that is my
Okay,
feedback.
I think our discussion is going a little bit long, so we must have to wind up. At the end, I'll just ask the participant to tell us, very shortly, what is the way forward? I think we have discussed all the issues and everything. So if you can briefly tell us the way forward. Dr. Salim.
I think we had a very good discussion. First thing, you should launch this course, no doubt. It will be helpful in contributing and training our youth in a right way, no doubt. But the focus should be, as I said, if you could design case studies in law, because if you are involving a law course, so there would be case studies on law, and there are very good case studies. Economics or in other areas, if you just focus on case studies, that will be very good, along with the theoretical aspect. The second thing is that you should also arrange attachment to the relevant departments. For example, if they are when they are taking the law courses, they should have a practical exposure and experience with the law division, law department, court, and all these things. At least they should know what the court is run by the judge and how the relationship between bar and the judge. And the third thing is that you should also involve practitioner in the classroom. Okay, they should learn theory as well as they should have experience from the practitioners who, for example, law and economics and IR related areas, so that they should have a blend of theory and practice. So this is my suggestion.
Okay, Dr. Amir Ansari. I think your mic has been muted.
Okay, so
okay.
Yes, thank you. The very first thing would be like little step, trying to find out the avenues or the sort of interactions with the students, like by the institutions representing the public departments or public policy. For example, by a little internships or attachments sort of thing, so that they have an idea actually how all this the public policy process actually works in actual. And then again, as Dr. Salim, in academia, as in other countries, advanced countries, most of the faculty members, they are actually, there is no pure academia, they teach as well as the research, they work for World Bank, they work for UNDP, they work for USAID. So apart from academia, academic side, they have the very the very fine understanding of how actually all those the theory, the concept, they actually translated into the practical manifestation. So I think that may be the starting points.
Okay, Taha, the same question. It's not question that a way forward that you would suggest for the issue. A lot of issues we have discussed, but I think your mic has been muted.
Sorry. So yes, and as I mentioned before, that one of the steps has already been taken by IOPM by introducing this program, and this was required to ensure that the students are getting their basic knowledge about public policy making if they are willing to have a career in that. So kudos to you. So yes, in the way forward, I would rather say that we need to acknowledge the fact that it is an specialized field and it has to be meant as such. And the course design has to be in a way that it blends the academia and the practicality of things. And we are always there on behalf of KMC. I can say that whatever help your students require from KMC, being the biggest metropolitan corporation of the country, we are always there to help them out, to make them understand how the government works and what are the opportunities for them. So we are available, and I'm really thankful for this opportunity to be able to speak at this platform. Grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zulkarnain.
I think all the suggestions majorly have been covered, but like, but I mean, my suggestion in regards to like the broader aspect, like, you know, not just only from the lens of this course that has been, or this program that has been introduced. Youth is basically sort of a transversal, you know, it's a cross-sectional and transversal aspect. So इसकी approach भी transversal and cross sectional होनी चाहिए. By that I mean health ministry, education ministry, all these different ministries, they need to interact with each other. There should be an inter-ministerial coordination committee with the representation of the youth, or at least youth-led organizations in place, to make sure that, you know, so there is a holistic approach towards handling this youth group. The reason why I'm saying this, हम बेशक अगर 15 से 29 साल के एज ग्रुप पे भी फोकस करते हैं, तो we cannot deny the fact कि 15 साल से पहले लोग उन बच्चों के साथ क्या हो रहा है. Of course they transition from there only. जहाँ पर आपके मुल्क के अंदर already so many children are outside the school, so you can imagine what sort of a youth will actually transition to the group of 15 to 29. So that's one thing on the ministerial level. I think there is also, and that covers the aspect of youth mainstreaming. By youth mainstreaming, I mean कि जो भी पॉलिसीज हों, चाहे वो प्राइवेट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस के एतबार से हों, इंस्टीट्यूशंस के एतबार से हों, पब्लिक इंस्टीट्यूशंस के एतबार से, उसमें ए लेंस ऑफ यूथ शुड बी देयर. आई मीन इट शुड बी डिबेटेड इन दोज बॉडीज कि ये जो पॉलिसी है इसका इम्प्लीकेशन यूथ के ऊपर कैसे होगा. आर वी केटरिंग टू द नीड्स ऑफ द यूथ एज वेल और नॉट. And then on the supply, on the demand side aspect, of course we need to work on the youth as well, जो कि already अगर इदारे में आ चुके हैं, तो we need to understand this कि every facet, no matter what discipline they go into, every discipline has a public policy side of it. So there should be some training around it, and I think the element of civic education is something which is missing in our educational institutions. So civic education ka aspect is something which I personally advocate for, and I think that's one thing which is needed, because the element of civic education ke through automatically आप practicality का aspect add कर सकते हैं, no matter what discipline you are coming from or what discipline the students are being taught. So these are some quick comments that I wanted to make, and I think the rest have already been covered by the experts.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we had a very informative discussions about the issue, about the engagement of youth in public policy. At the end, I would say that although we have discussed many issues and many, you know, policy solutions, although our panelists have suggested that what should we do, but then I would say that one thing that needs to be, you know, it's a, you know, a very a step that needs to be taken at a priority basis, that universities should design such programs that should be market oriented, that should be industry oriented, and they should produce the students the market according to the requirements of the markets. And one thing more that is more important, I think a multidisciplinary approach should be adopted. So keeping in the view that the, you know, experts views that we have discussed here, that these interdisciplinary programs should be designed. And I think IOBM by doing this, by offering this program like BS in Economics, International Relations and Law, I think it's a right a step in the right direction. And with this, I'm really thankful to the participants. Actually, Dr. Shahida Wizarat, our Dean, and Mr. Akil Beg, or HOD Economics, they were supposed to formally thank you, but they had some other commitments. So on behalf of them, I would like to thank you for taking out your time from a very busy schedule, and thanks for being with us. Thank you, Dr. Salim. Thank you, Dr. Amir Ansari,
Thank you.
Taha Salim, and Zulkarnain ul Haq. Thank you so much.